Every town has a story that has been lost in time. My name is Dave Phillips, and this is Forgotten History Podcast. Due to the graphic content on this week's episode, listener discretion is advised. What's up, everybody, and welcome back. This is episode 4. Today, we will be talking about the Rood apple. This is an old legend from Norwich, Connecticut, where an 18th century recluse commits a violent deed that taints the fruit of his apple orchard with the blood of his guilt. Micah Rood, born in February of 1653, was, for all accounts, a happy guy. He had his own farm in what is now Franklin, used to be West Farms, in Norwich, Connecticut. And he was a farmer. He would sit at the end of his long road and he would give his apples to the children as they were passing back and forth to school. But something in Micah changed, and the legend is that one day there was a peddler going through town, and supposedly this was a French peddler, and he had some high-end valuables with him. Well, when he stopped at Micah's house, the peddler didn't make it out. I guess Micah snapped, and he killed this peddler and buried him under a certain apple tree. And from that point on, the apple tree produced blood red droplets on the inside of these apples. Now, these apples had a specific name. They were once called Micah Rood apples or just plain Rood apples. And at this point, all these strands of apples are now extinct. You can't find these apples anywhere. Now, I am not a doctor by any means, but by all accounts, from all the research that I've done on this guy was a schizophrenic. With the mood swings and the complete changes of personality throughout the years that he had, I have firsthand experience with dealing with schizophrenia in my family, so I know the signs. And he was just labeled crazy back then. There is a court document that has been printed, and it does say that Mary Backus and Thomas Hyde on 7/15/1727 were paid 2 shillings at night and 3 shillings per day for the care of Micah Rood. It was also listed that each resident had to give Micah 1 peck of corn. And when Micah finally passed away, Jacob Hyde received 4 shillings for the digging of his grave. Now, I've been to the area where his apple orchard was, and right now it is all private land, and Mother Nature has basically taken back the entire apple orchard. But that one tree that the peddler was found under, that supposedly produced these blood red apple marks, doesn't exist anymore as well. In the hurricane of 1938, that specific tree was taken out. There are also no court records showing that Micah was ever charged with the killing of this so-called peddler. So no one really knows if this event actually happened or if it is a he said, she said myth and folklore. So Micah was the only person in this dysfunctional family to have issues. His father, Thomas Rood, was born in 1626 and died on October 18th, 1672, an exact date. And there's a reason for that. Thomas Rood was the first and only person ever in the New English colonies to be accused, tried, convicted, and sentenced. 1 lashing in Hartford, 1 lashing in Norwich, and a hanging in Norwich for the crime of incest against his daughter Sarah. Now, they deemed Sarah was tempted by her father Thomas, so she only received 1 lashing in Hartford and 1 lashing in Norwich. And all this came about because Thomas's wife, Sarah Leffingwell, had passed away in 1668, and he became lonely. And with only Micah's sister, Thomas's daughter, Sarah, being the only female in the house, she was taken advantage of. And it produced an offspring, George. 1672, George was born. And with that, George grew up to have a fairly normal life. He was taken in by a Leffingwell family member and raised as their own. But when George got married, he too married a child of incest. I am going to read you the indictment of Thomas Rood. Not having the fear of God before thine eyes, thou hast committed the abominable sin of incest, having carnal copulation with Sarah Rood, thy reputed daughter, for which, according to the law of God and the law of this colony, thou be deserved to die. Thomas Rood, thou art to go from here to the place from whence thou camest, and in due time to be carried from thence to the place of execution, and there to be hanged by the neck till thou art dead, and then cut down and buried. So with this family, we have 1 part legend with Micah Rood, because no one can prove it to this date. We don't know what was wrong with him mentally. It could have been any number of illnesses that were not thought of back then that we have complete knowledge of today. And with his father, that is well documented. That is historical fact. His father was insane. And to be the first and only and last person to be hung or executed for the crime of incest, that's just crazy. So I do hope you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, I will see you later.